So recently I watched season 8 of Game of Thrones again. Don't ask why, I just enjoy hurting myself, I guess. One of the hardest episodes to get through that whole season for me was actually episode 3. Not because it was the worst episode, but because it actually had so many things that I like. But the really bad things, like Arya jumping out of the fourth dimension to kill the Night King, really spoil the whole thing, you know? But now that the initial pain of the horrible season has faded, I decided why not have a little bit of fun ripping on the show a little bit, since I kind of did go soft on it last year when the season was airing, though I wasn't shy about my criticisms. But since everyone else has had a lot of fun at the show's expense, why not me? I should get it out of the way and say that the episode looks great, the visuals are really good, the typical things that are usually good about the later seasons of Game of Thrones are good in this episode. Everything looks really cool and seems really epic, but nothing in this episode makes any sense whatsoever. So everyone is waiting for the White Walkers to come, and Melisandre walks straight out of the darkness, right out of the northern wilderness, in the pitch black, in the same direction that the White Walkers later come from, by the way. I guess here what David and Dan were probably thinking was magic woman do magic thing. And this line of thinking continued once Melisandre lights all the Aurochs of the Dothraki on fire, and then they proceed to commit suicide by running directly into the pitch black and being slaughtered immediately by White Walkers. It would be sad that the Dothraki all died in such a horrible way, but they were all reincarnated a few episodes later, so it's all good anyway. But still, you have to wonder, if you're going to have people lined up outside of a castle, why have them charge out into the dark like that? That's simply nonsensical. But once the White Walkers show up and actually charge, it actually looks pretty intense. But then again, it's ruined by the lack of deaths of main characters. There are way too many times in this episode where characters should have been dead. So many instances where it is not shown how characters are making it out of situations. Also, the dragons make no sense anymore by this episode. So in episode 5, we see Daenerys annihilate all of King's Landing like it's nothing with one dragon. The Night King's dragon doesn't seem to have a fraction of that power. Otherwise, why not just simply destroy Winterfell? I mean, it took down the wall, yet it can't even hurt Jon Snow, and he's right behind that stone. It's just a total disregard of even what they establish in their own episodes. If you're not gonna keep to the books, okay. But you couldn't even manage to keep up with your own BS. And speaking of dragon, can we talk about how dumb the trench lighting scene was? It was supposed to be Dany's job to light the trench, but she abandons their incredibly stupid plan immediately at the slightest sign of something going wrong. But that's okay, because Jon, who is literally at the castle, could easily light the trench with his dragon, except he doesn't. He just sits there. Instead, we're going to have Melisandre slowly walk up to the trench and light it with magic. And I mean, she takes her time. Like, hurry up. The White Walkers are literally breaking through right now. Anything for a dramatic effect, I guess, David and Dan, huh? And then, of course, there's evil Bran doing nothing. You know, there are all these stories in the books about how the children of the forest used the magic of the Green Seers to call upon beasts of the land to fight for them. Why couldn't we have seen some of that? Bran is a powerful skin changer. Why wouldn't he attempt to possess the Night King's dragon? Or attempt to knock him off of his dragon? So many questions that will never be answered and were probably never even considered. The official answer from D&D as to what Bran was doing the whole time was that he was scouting. For what? I don't know. And he wasn't communicating with anyone, so I don't know what possible use he could have had for scouting. One of the most annoying parts of this episode is that Jon doesn't even fight the Night King. I know that David and Dan thought they were really clever and cool and being different and awesome, trying to subvert expectations, but really they just ended up setting up something that didn't pay off. And once again, Arya is given a hero's badge for another one of her magic tricks. It's funny to me that being a legendary figure, the Night King is taken out so easily. Honestly, he should have had on better armor. He was aware that they had dragon glass. He was aware that they had Valyrian steel. I don't get it. I applaud the effort that was put into this episode by everyone other than David Benioff and Dan Weiss, because if they had hired better writers like HBO had wanted them to, this episode could have been so much better. But these guys just aren't smart, and they think they're so smart, and it makes it worse that they thought we as their audience was dumb enough as to not see the flaws, not only in this episode, but in the entire show. I would say probably that if it wasn't for this season, the legacy of Game of Thrones wouldn't be nearly as tarnished. It would just be me and a small number of other angry book nerds yelling on the internet about how much better it would have been if they had continued to follow George R. R. Martin's source material. So many of the fans were ready to forgive and overlook the problems of the series as long as the show at least ended well, but they couldn't even do that. Every episode was progressively more and more depressingly bad and vacuous. And I think George R. R. Martin must realize how much David and Dan have actually damaged his brand. His magnum opus, the story of his dreams, was ruined. And from now on, when most people think of these characters, they're going to see the crappy show versions of them instead of the detailed, complex ones from the books, who are living in a detailed and complex world which has elements of fantasy, but also has rules that must be obeyed. I feel like David and Dan viewed fantasy as a free-for-all. Anything is possible, nothing matters when you have magic. So that's why the most fantasy episode in the whole show turned out to be such a dumpster fire. You know, it's sad that it happened, but honestly, it's cathartic at this point for me to just vent. And thank you guys for listening to me rant. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more ideas of Ice and Fire. Hey guys, I'm really excited because I have an upcoming graphic novel called Tadia that I wrote coming out. Click the link in the description to get put on my email mailing list for more information.